grab some tea, preferably your favorite tea, or some coffee. Get cozy and comfy, because that's exactly how this episode was recorded. And find some solitude, if that works for you. Some self-care space. But if it doesn't work for you today, that's okay. I've had the pleasure of joining Christian Pinachos on her wonderful podcast, where we chat about lovely sacred teas, social media battles, being the observer of ourselves in the quest of understanding ourselves, purposely wasting our day, and how being bored can be the most productive thing we can do these days. And lots more heart-hugging juiciness. I can't wait for you to listen. I'll allow Christian to take the lead. Enjoy!
Hello, I have Sarah on. How do you say your last name? I don't think I've ever learned how to say your last name.
Sarah Egan.
Egan, okay. Just making sure. I will look at it and I'll be like, Egan, but no, Egan. Hey everyone, I have Sarah Egan on, and we know each other from our hypnosis program, and we just wanted to hop on here and have a chat. I don't know, we had Reiki the other day. I was giving her distance Reiki the other day, and she woke up, she scheduled it in the middle of the night, at 11:30, when she's dead asleep. And I didn't realize it because I'm in Pacific Standard Time. She's in Spain. So I didn't realize she scheduled it while she was sleeping. And then she texted me later on in my evening my time, and she's like, I'm so awake on a Monday morning at 5:50 a.m. Thank you so much for the Reiki. And I was like, that's awesome. Usually people get sleepy.
Yeah, well, I jumped up out of bed. I was like, oh my God, this is amazing. Because I always try to get up extra early, and it's on a Monday, it's just impossible, but it really, really worked. So I had a really good day.
That's so awesome. It's so funny because you're welcome. It's so funny because with the Reiki, I don't you don't put a specific this is what I want. You just kind of know this is my intention, but whatever happens is what's meant to happen. And that was a delightful surprise.
Oh, well, you're doing the right thing.
Thank you. But yeah, we wanted to talk about tea. We were chatting a little bit before we clicked record, and we were just talking. She's like, because I scheduled this very casual podcast time as tea and pod, because we're just talking and having some tea. You guys are welcome to have tea also while we're chatting. And yeah, that's the vibe. And she was telling me about all the teas she set up and the intentions and stuff like that. And I was like, oh my God, please, let's talk about it, because this, we have to hit record now.
Yeah. So I have two teas. I have a blue lotus tea, and it's like a tea that was used back in the Egyptian times, and they used it to calm them down and to connect and, I suppose, meditate. And then I have another one, which is mugwort, but the actual, I suppose, biological name, or how would you say scientific name, is Artemisia vulgaris, and which is associated to the goddess Artemis. And the goddess Artemis is the goddess of wild animals and was Zeus's daughter. I was like, hello, what's going on here? These lovely teas.
I love that she's connected with animals. She sounds free-spirited. Doesn't she have a bow and arrow too? I'm vaguely remembering.
Yes, and she has, there's a lovely picture online if you want to look, if anybody wants to look it up, and it's the goddess of wild animals, vegetation, and of chastity and childbirth. So yeah, and she has a lovely blue. She's in some pictures that have lovely blues and whites and lilacs.
Oh, blue. That sounds like throat chakra stuff, communication and self-expression. And creativity is a part of that too.
Yes, these teas, I got them because in order to kind of connect spiritually, especially in meditation. And some people drink blue lotus tea before they go to bed in order to connect with their dreams and get some more messages through their dreams. Yes, so let's see what happens later because it's nighttime here.
Blue lotus tea. Wait. Is that the same tea that we were talking about? Blue lotus tea? Yeah. Okay. I had, when she mentioned it,
mugwort. Blue lotus and
mugwort. And mugwort is the name of the Artemis tea. Okay. What is so what do you use mugwort for?
It's a spiritual.
Did Google have answers?
Yeah, I did. It's also a spiritual tea that you can use to connect, with your higher self, or, it's a meditative tea. That's what they use it for. But it's to connect with the psychic world. It's not safe for pregnant or lactating women. So be careful.
Oh, that's it. Even though it sounds like a... Did it say about pregnant women?
Mm-hmm. Don't drink it if you're pregnant, because
the goddess of Artemis was the goddess of fertility, not fertility.
Yeah,
that's really interesting.
Mm-hmm.
That is, don't drink it if you're pregnant. Mm-hmm. But she's the goddess of fertility.
It's true. So chastity and childbirth. Childbirth.
Oh. So maybe it induces this pregnancy. I'm just positing, you guys. I'm like, oh.
Yeah. So if you want the child to come soon, drink this. But please don't go by my guidelines. Check it first.
On our quick Google search.
Yeah. And what's your go-to tea?
What was that, Sidian?
What's your go-to tea? What kind of tea?
My go-to tea. Oh, honestly, my go-to is whatever in the cupboard. And what do we have there right now? You know what? There's this one. I don't know the actual name of the flower, but it was for sore throats, and it's called. The box says throat coat on it, and it tasted like licorice. And it's for sore throats. And when I drank it, it completely numbed my throat. And I was having a really gnarly cold in the beginning of January. And I was like, this is gross because I don't like the flavor of licorice. But it really felt nice besides the flavor. I need to find out the name of the...
Licorice tea? Might it have been...
There's an actual name. I don't think licorice was in the name. I just can't remember. I don't remember names off the top of my head so easily, especially when it comes to herbs. But so there was that. There's a winter tea that's in there that has cinnamon and stuff, like a wake up tea, and that's very nice, very cabin feely, really cold, frigid weather, warms up your bones kind of wake up tea. There's a chamomile, there's a lavender, ginger. I love ginger. Actually, I think ginger would be my one. I love ginger tea.
I have a pot of ginger and lemon on the stove that I kind of boil in a big huge pot, and I put in ginger, put in lemon, and I boil it until it's it boils out all the stuff, the foam, and then I leave it there on the stove for a week and heat it up every morning, and it's like a hug in your belly and your heart when you wake up in the morning.
Oh, you leave it on the stove?
Well, not on it's not on, the heat isn't on, but it just when I want to heat it up every day. So can you imagine that the pot of water is there for the whole week, and I take some tea and then I fill it back up again, because ginger is quite potent. So you don't really need to throw it out after one boil. You can get a few boils out of it.
And this is the ginger itself, or you have tea bags?
No, ginger itself, the root vegetable.
Oh, see, I know, I don't know if some people know about this by now. I'm not a cook, so I'm learning stuff how to do things in the kitchen. Feels like magic to me.
It is magic.
Oh, yeah, like putting together things and like see what it turns into, what concoction and stuff like that. It's been a lot of fun exploring that. I'm still getting the hang of it. I have electric stove, so it's a learning curve.
Yeah.
I've learned a lot about myself with that electric stove, and I still am.
I love that. What kind of things have you been cooking?
I haven't been cooking in a while, so I took a pause on that to create content for everything on Substack and all else and all the adjustments.
Hmm.
Um, I don't know if you saw my last Substack. Um, I know you read my Substack sometimes.
I do. Yeah.
I put out one last night where I deleted Facebook and Instagram, and that was
Yes.
a whole process. Like,
Amazing.
I knew it last week that I was going to do it. Like, it doesn't feel aligned anymore. What's going on with the platform? Leadership feels like it's lost, or not, the people that own the platform and run it. They lost touch with the people they serve. So that's just what happens when you serve in self-interest and
Hmm.
you forget the people that are actually using it and how it benefits them. And the process has been really interesting because as I've been shifting over, I would reach out to everybody that I was like, this is people that I talk to on a routine basis, and these are people I don't have their phone numbers and stuff like that.
Hmm.
And then it would be, um, everybody was like totally on board with leaving. Like
Really?
everybody was ready. Like
Hmm.
one of them, there was only one person on Facebook that I was interested in keeping touch with. And she was like, I already started this process. I'm moving over to TikTok. Like she
Hmm.
wants to get rid of, like she only keeps Facebook for her groups
Hmm.
that she keeps in contact with. So
Yeah.
people have already been doing this process, and
Yeah.
like the excitement I experienced with that.
Hmm.
And I'm like wondering, since I really truly believe social media is dying, at least like the meta platforms. What do you think about it?
Well, I've taken a step back from social media and I go on basically to just post mindfulness and meditation and things just like yourself to promote what I do and all of that. That's the only time I really go on. So about my regarding my personal life, I'm barely ever on it. I only go on to send my friends like funny animals or just like little
Yes.
hedgehogs, hedgehogs or something
Yeah.
like that to communicate with people from home. That's really it. Yeah.
Yeah. Do you feel like now that you engage with the platform in a different way instead of thinking that like I know some content creators they've like really stepped into like Instagram and Facebook being their platform and
Mhm.
devoting a lot of time and energy to that. Do you feel like now that you stepped back away from it that you like recalled back your energy? Like,
Yes,
oh,
100%. I
how did
feel
it
like
feel?
I feel that Instagram can put this power over you, can control you and control your emotions if you
Yeah.
allow it to. And
Hmm.
especially if you're a content creator and you're relying on your business through that channel. Like it's amazing on one hand because you can generate a lot of clients, but if your whole self-worth relies on that social network, like it can be detrimental to your empowerment.
Wow. Was that your experience?
I felt that I suppose when I was using my personal Instagram, and yeah, I think if you were missing out on, I suppose your friends meeting up or whatever, would kind of make you feel a little bit, I suppose, FOMO
Hmm.
and those kind of things. And when I started coaching about back in 2017, 2018, yes, I definitely felt that Instagram controlled my self worth a little bit.
You already knew like how it had a hold on you.
Mm-hmm.
like so long ago. Like how long from when you started Instagram to that point did you realize?
Well, I suppose I realized when I felt like my emotions were irrational. You know, I was like, what's going on
Oh,
here? Like, what is this? you know?
yeah. It kind of like it's so interesting how social media has like an effect on the brain and our
Mm-hmm,
nervous systems
mm-hmm,
and how it cultivates this environment of reactivity within us. And that's what you see on there and
mm-hmm,
on Facebook is like reactivity. I don't even have a word for it.
mm-hmm.
I don't know, reactivity central. Like
Yeah.
everybody is reactive and like gunning at each other and aiming for each other at all day long. And I was like, how do people have the energy for this? This makes me so exhausted just reading it.
Yes, it does exhaust you, especially when you get lost in scrolling and like there's so much good information, but there's I think nowadays in the last year or so, I'm like I don't have the headspace to stay on it for that long because it's like a bit overwhelming. You
Yeah,
know?
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like last year it got me into an overthinking state, and
Mm-hmm.
I'm not accustomed to overthinking. I mean, it had been a very long time,
Mm-hmm.
and overthinking was so uncomfortable for me. I was like, oh my God, I used to do this. Like, like not shaming anybody who still overthinks. It's more like my brain is so quiet these days.
Mm-hmm.
And then going from a really quiet brain into an overthinking brain, like seeing the stark contrast
Mm-hmm.
was so uncomfortable to my head. Like I would get headaches and stuff like that
Yeah.
because of it.
Mm-hmm. Yes, I completely relate to that. That's what
Yeah.
happened to me as well. And trying to like figure out the algorithm, which is completely unfigureoutable.
Insane. It's insane. Well, I don't think we were meant to figure out an algorithm that wasn't for our best interest anyways.
No, no,
Like
definitely.
what we want from it, it was never going to give that to us anyways.
Mm-hmm.
So like it's like asking a narcissistic person to fulfill your needs or like
Yeah,
like help you with your needs and stuff like that.
exactly.
So
And you don't want to derive or you don't want to, how would you say, swerve off your values. But a lot of people are caught up in the algorithm and what kind of music is trending and what kind of videos are trending and all of this, and they lose their reason for being on Instagram, and what they're actually there for. A lot of
their
well, it depends
essence
on
too.
yeah.
Like
Mm-hmm.
who are you? Like who are you really? Because like during human history and evolution, this was not a thing.
Mm-hmm.
And people were more, I don't know, what were people before social media? What
I
were
was
they doing?
calling each other on the phone.
And being themselves for the most part, right? Because a lot of people were still thinking they had to be something else because of society. But it feels like, I guess the difference between social media and pre-social media is that it amplified a state of inauthenticity
Mm-hmm.
or not being in alignment with yourself. It amplified it even harder,
Mm-hmm.
and it was able to affect more people in that way, I guess,
Yeah, yeah,
if that makes
definitely.
sense.
Totally. Mentally as well, with people's mental health. If you're looking at different profiles and you're not in a balanced mental health state, or if you're feeling low or whatever, it can make you feel worse.
Hmm.
Oh, totally.
Yeah.
But that's why it's so important to kind of be aware and be the observer and look upon what's happening in ourselves and then go from there and take a step back. And then until you're feeling better again, you can go back on it, but just to be aware of how it can control you, or if you're allowing it to control your emotions.
Yeah. Can you tell us more about being the observer within ourselves? What's that like?
Yeah. Well, it depends. Like, it depends on the situation. So, especially regarding social media, I found that being the observer of how I was reacting and trying, like, being a crazy person, trying to figure out the algorithm and, like, constantly looking at my phone to see if anybody liked my post or if anybody responded or which one was doing better. And then taking myself out of that and looking at myself and how I was reacting, it was absolutely mental. you know, you know
So
what?
you're observing your own behavior and you're like, who is this person?
Yeah, I was like, this isn't healthy. It's taken
Yeah.
up my life. It's taken up
Yeah.
my emotions, and I'm like, I suppose, externalizing self-worth rather than just allowing something outside to value my worth. So
Yeah, it's like an interesting reward system. Like, if you are doing it right by the algorithm, you'll get your likes and followers. If you don't, you're sitting there trying to figure out how you're supposed to be like for the algorithm and followers and likes.
Yeah.
Wow, that's so fucked up.
I know.
That
Now
makes
I'm
me
like,
that makes me so mad right now.
I know. And now I'm like, I really couldn't care less. I really
Yeah.
could not care less. And I don't care. All I'm doing is trying to, contribute to the universal frequency. And whoever likes it or not is not my problem. I'm doing my
Ooh,
job.
yes. And I want to hear about this. Now that you're outside of social media for the most part, and you are intentional about how you engage with it now every once in a while, what is life looking like as you engage with the universal frequency? What are we talking about when we're engaging with universal frequency?
Connecting through our hearts and
Mm,
just being, just being, connecting through our hearts, connection, and I suppose just in a state of being where we don't feel the need for external resources to give us that sense of peace.
Yeah. You're just in a state of existence. I feel like that's what we did long before colonial times. We were just like communing with the earth and just being ourselves and what we wanted to do. Like, naps were okay all day.
Naps are still okay every day in my world.
Yes. Oh yeah, me too. I had a nice long like nap in the evening right before I was supposed to go to sleep. And I was like, okay, this is happening. I had to surrender to that last year.
Yeah.
Surrendering to I've been on this journey of what if I put my body first before my mind, what my mind thinks I'm supposed to be doing. And that included I'll like wake up in the morning with so much energy. I'm gonna do this one thing. Oh my God, I'm exhausted already. My body wants a nap at 10 in the morning. And I did it. And it's really funny how tricky the brain is that you'll feel shame and guilt for taking that nap. And it's gonna you're gonna sleep the day away. But once I surrendered to it and just let my body have what it wanted, I only was napping for 25 minutes and then I popped out of bed and I was ready for the rest of the day.
Yeah. That is so amazing, because when we do tap into our bodies and listen to what they need, we will just get more out of our lives completely. Yeah. And I think that society that ingrained that into our kind of way of thinking, we can't waste the day. And especially if we're accustomed to working hard and working in pressured environments and hardworking, it's kind of ingrained there and it's hard to let that go.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, what does wasting the day mean anyways? What does that even mean anyways? Especially if you're only doing things that your body wants and where your soul wants to go. And that could look like anything because it's your soul. And alignment for you can look like anything. What does wasting the day even mean? Like, does it, I feel like it loses its meaning and potency because it doesn't even exist anymore.
Exactly. And it's, I keep hearing, well, what I've been hearing over the last while is we need to be bored again.
Yes.
Find boredom because we're so occupied. We've so many stimulants in the outside world that wasting a day is actually probably more beneficial if you want to say wasting, but being bored and not doing anything productive at all is way more beneficial than anything else.
You know, oh my God. Thank you for bringing that up because being bored, you will learn a lot about yourself by being bored because it is, if you're used to being turned on all the time and doing in like the doing mode and productivity mode, boredom will teach you about yourself.
Yeah, totally.
100%. And through that process, though, you find out what it is you want instead. I feel like you find your alignment through boredom. You're like, all these other things like social media and whatever, the have tos and should tos, you step away from that. That's what it looked like. Like everything, universe had this process with me in my journey is taking away all the things that like are no longer aligned. And it was literally everything. Most of everything was not aligned except for the roof over my head, the food that I get to eat every day, the clothes on my back. And it like opened up my space. Like I had a lot of space to be like, oh, what's around me in my immediate world in this very room where I create all my content for everybody. This is where I sleep. This is where I watch TV. This is where I draw. And then I was like, wait, I actually, like, it's so weird. Like, the computer's like a portal to not having enough. But when you take a step back from it, like from the internet and the marketing and the social media, you're like, wait a second. I have a lot of things. I have a whole little area of art supplies. And I'm like, I could be creating or exploring this thing for myself that my inner child always wanted to have time for. And I love that I'm saying this because my gut started lighting up. I think that's a message for me to like be bored and start coloring.
Oh, yes.
Like it widened my, like the shedding of all the things that weren't in alignment allowed me the space to explore what it is for me that is in alignment. What is aligned with my soul instead.
And I can imagine that it wasn't easy to take that step.
I don't even think it was like one solid step. It was a lot of things over time. Like all of last year was a shedding. It was my 9-year in numerology. It was like the ending of a cycle.
Yeah.
Yeah. And 1 year this year is like the new beginnings and all the new things I'm stepping into.
Is it a 1 year for you this year?
Yeah, it's 1 year.
Wow. You've done like a whole cycle, a circle cycle.
Yeah.
Amazing.
So, and January has been absolutely bonkers. Has it been bonkers for you?
Well, there's been big shifts happening. Yes, like I suppose shedding the past and letting go of things, and in my personal life, like there was a big thing that happened and it's now like releasing and letting go. It was like after 5 years of waiting and now it's finally been dealt with. So that was a big shift. Yeah, I think January has been shifty.
That's so, like, I love that you said that particular event was a 5-year process. And another thing that social media and marketing throughout our society over the decades is that it kind of like hijacked our brains that things need to be fixed right away.
Mm-hmm.
But I think if we shed things too quickly, I feel like it would be traumatizing.
Oh, completely.
Like what if I lost, like the LA fires just happened here. They're like finishing up. What if I lost everything? Like what if my shedding looked like a shedding with the fire, like, and I lost everything instead?
Mm-hmm.
Like,
very traumatic.
I feel like that's the universe's wisdom. Like, you're gonna shed, but we're gonna do this over time, and we're gonna be kind to your nervous system. Not saying that what happened during the fires was an unkindness by universe. Like, universe doesn't do things to us.
Yeah.
It's for us, and that was an event.
Mm-hmm.
I don't even know how to explain those things, because I feel like if I use human terms to explain those things, it just doesn't do it a service. There's something mystical about the hard things in life. Let's just put it that way.
Totally.
Yeah.
And I can imagine, I kind of feel what you're saying, that there was something deeper about the fire. It was like clearing away things in order for new things to grow, maybe.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
yeah.
that aren't necessarily beneficial, even though it's hard to say that to people who have lost their homes. But yeah, I'm getting what you're saying.
It's like, I've been noticing over the last couple of years how important collective events are.
Mm-hmm.
Like how it shifts. Like, even if you weren't directly affected by the fires, you were affected by them by watching them.
Oh, totally.
You learn from it by witnessing the fires.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And that big thing that happened in Valencia in Spain, the floods, did you see that online?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, It was like I think that happened in October, November. And that was obviously devastating. And it was just something.
Were you a part of that? Did that happen to you? Were you going through that?
Okay. I'm in the center of Spain, in Madrid, and then Valencia is on like the east coast. So it was
okay.
And it was a devastation. Like, they're still recuperating from it. But I think the goodness out of that situation was that people came out from the woodwork to help from all angles of the country, and there was thousands and thousands and thousands of volunteers, even before the government could even start to help.
See, they don't share that stuff online.
Oh,
like, even if you were like abreast of current events, like even if you needed quote unquote social media to keep current, they don't even share what's important.
Yeah.
And I didn't even know that community aspect of that event, it just drives me crazy how they only share one particular facet of an event that affects us, and it's usually the traumatizing part, and they didn't add the goodness and it's the whole piece, like the whole picture. Traumatic things happen, something beautiful flourishes from something terrible.
Yeah.
And that was the community love aspect of that. And that's what happened in LA. I don't know if you saw it on your end. I tried to post as much of that as I could find on my stories, while keeping everybody informed about, like, you know, safety and stuff like that, and like resources, like sharing resources with people who might not have access to it in LA. I'm like close to LA, downtown LA, like the city of LA. I'm like the outskirts of LA County. LA County is really huge. So, and I know people that live there, so I was like sharing resources, like doing what I could to help from where in proximity. And then also I was sharing the community aspect of everybody's like really coming together and help. But I don't think anybody out there globally saw that unless they knew people who were connected to the fires.
Yeah.
And that's probably the same what happened in Spain. Like, if people were sharing in their stories or their social media platforms, the community aspect. And I find that very interesting. Like, I didn't even realize that until just now, so we're talking about it.
And I didn't realize that there was a big community response to the fires as well, which is really nice to hear.
It was huge.
Amazing.
Yeah.
And I think, like, behind all of these disastrous events is that it's like a test for humanity to come out and help each other.
Social media, like, it's very, I think I'm like really excited that I'm stepping away from the algorithm of Meta, because the communities that I see in other spaces feel a little bit more wholesome, I guess.
Yeah.
And I was like, this is something I remembered from before, like our lifetime before social media is the togetherness, the communityness, the connection with each other. And I'm actually really excited. I feel like we're going to be stepping into that new phase since a lot of people are shifting away from meta platforms now. I feel like even though there's a lot of ugly happening out there, a lot of changes, especially in the States. I don't know what's happening in Spain, if you want to share. But because I think sharing between each other, especially in our local communities and between each other globally, highlights our humanity and how our commonalities. And I think our most precious resource is each other moving forward, I feel.
Yes, 100%. Regarding changes in Spain, nothing really has been changing that I'm aware of. I'm not one to look at the news though. You know, it always comes to me through different people or my students or clients about what's happening in the news. But directly I don't, because the news over here is just politics, what they're doing wrong, finger pointing, and they barely tap into the world, you know. So if you do want to find out what's happening in the world, you need to go on other platforms to find it online.
Oh, so your news is more all what's happening. But that's really interesting, because I thought in Europe they were like more abreast of what's happening in the rest of the world. Or
maybe
is that
France and the north of Europe, and maybe in Ireland and England, but Spain, the majority of Spanish news is occupied by politicians fighting.
Oh, that's really... Yeah. That's unfortunate.
Yeah.
That sounds like the States.
Look what he did wrong. Look who's after being caught, doing this, doing that, and, corruption, and they're always out to get each other, and that's what fills the news over here.
It's like, I don't even know if that's even real news. Like, is that the stuff that we need to know?
No.
The argument? I don't think we need to know the argument. No. And I'm like thinking about it over here, and everybody knows by now that Trump's in office.
Even if you don't watch it, you have to know.
The drama of all the changes he's making, and everybody's like, it's awful. Yeah, like all the things he's doing. Like, I have a cousin who works for one of the government agencies, and she's like telling me what's happening, and I was like, oh my god, it's awful. The changes that are happening, it's not a good thing. And at the same time, actually, let me say this, because I was gonna say it's a distraction from our inner work, but maybe that was the inner work. Maybe we were meant to be reactive by all the crap he's pulling off, and then dwell within ourselves, because that's the only thing we can control, is our own healing. What do we need to heal about ourselves? Because I'm very much in the state where, after what I've witnessed over the last year with like genocide and stuff, it had been a big message to look at it, which is I like to say that because a lot of people are like, why would you do that to yourself? I'm like, it was a message. I was supposed to go there and see it. And now that I'm leaving, I left social media, it felt like a closing to that phase where, because prior to that, I never watched the news. I'm like you, I'm totally oblivious. The only way I would know is if somebody told me, and these days it will be my partner. He's very like abreast of what's going on in the news. So I would never be out of touch. I have somebody who will always tell me what's going on. So, and now that I work through a lot of my inner stuff through that process, I've in this interesting sense of peace. I have a lot of peace with myself and what's going on with the world. It's happening, it's awful, I agree. And at the same time, with this sense of peace, I'm not reactive. And I'm able to like boldly look and stare at things for what they are, for face value and for deeper meaning and purpose. And then also keep focus on the vision, the big picture vision at hand.
Yeah.
Like these atrocities do exist. And at the same time, we'll hold a picture of where we're going to. Because if we hold just this, we're only focused on the symptom of a society that doesn't work from the foundational level. So that's why everything's crumbling right now.
Yeah.
And then if I'm only focused on that, how do I know where I'm going if I don't have the vision, right?
Yeah.
So I don't know, that's where I'm at right now with all of it. I was like, this all makes sense.
Yes, it totally does. And I love that because you're observing. You're observing the bigger picture, but you're observing yourself. And what it sounds like what you did was it was like a lever to explore how you were feeling. And you kind of went down the empowering route rather than the fearful and allowing it to make you more afraid of what was happening. You kind of flipped it and observed it and used it as a way of healing. Which brings me to a card that I took. So before I have cards, these like angel cards, and I was like, I feel like I'm going to pick a card from this new deck that I got as a present. And the card that came out is Sitiel, and she is the angel of personal power. And
it's an angel deck?
Yeah.
I love angels.
I know, me too. I have.
And she's a personal power, you said?
Yes. So I was like,
what's the name? Can you say the name of the deck out loud for the people who are listening on the pod and not watching it on Substack?
This is called the Angel Magic Oracle deck.
Oh my god, I love that so much. I love angels and I love decks.
And the artwork, so this is made by Tess Hurst.
Okay.
She created
beautiful.
The deck. Really, really.
That'll go in the show notes, you guys. Wow.
And so I set an intention to, obviously to send a message of what might benefit anybody who's listening. And what you're talking about ties in really well with this because, you became empowered through that process. And this angel who came out, Sitiel, is the angel of empowerment and believing in ourselves and taking back our power.
Yes. And that is what's collectively happening.
Yeah.
Not in, and I say collectively, but it is happening with the individual. We are part of a collective, right?
Yeah.
So I'm really excited. I really like this is what Pluto and Aquarius is about, is coming together in community and taking back our power from where we let them take it from us by like letting them be the authority over us. So
yes. And that's
I'm so excited.
The news, we can allow the news to take our power, or we can use it, like what you were saying, as a kind of a lever to go within and to observe without being reactive. And through social media as well, we can allow it to take our power, or we can take it back and go inwards and, not be reactive after the work.
I want to say something about not being reactive, because sometimes I have moments where I want to be reactive, where like I want to feel all the things.
Yeah,
like
that's lovely.
It's either observing it, like, oh, I have this thing bubbling up inside of me. But what if you're not, like you and me, practiced in observing? You want to be you might want to be reactive. What if screaming in a pillow feels really good right now after seeing whatever the fuck you saw?
Yes.
That would cause you to scream into a pillow.
Yeah. And it's really healthy to express those emotions,
Yes.
I feel. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh no, 100%. The energy needs somewhere to go. And if you're not giving it a space, not relieving yourself of that emotion or feeling, you just harbor it in your body. Yeah.
Stored, and then it could develop into illnesses or uncomfortableness. So yes, totally.
Yes.
It needs to get out.
Yeah. Everyone, I love Sarah so much. She did one of my quantum hypnosis sessions, and this was a very profound one for me. I just shared, I think the second release was my inner child hypnosis which turned out to be my connection with the spirit of my business. And then after that, last year, I think maybe in February, it might be a year now almost since we had this hypnosis, I had the intention to just surprise me. That was my intention for this hypnosis. And she was my facilitator for this one. And because we're talking about angels and inner authority and empowerment, and then looking at things that scare us, she took me into this hypnosis, and Jesus came up in it. And I'm going to share it with you guys like around the same time that this podcast episode comes out. Sorry, a message came through over my computer. I got a little distracted. And then this hypnosis, it was so important for me because it touched on my religious wounds, because I have I was raised Catholic, and I had to deal with a lot of unshedding in my 20s about my religious beliefs and my intersexual, my relationship with sexuality and stuff like that. That was all entwined. And it was really interesting in this hypnosis because, and I didn't share this with Sarah for a very long time until afterwards, that I don't even, I have a hard time saying it right now too. But it was me because of the way I explain hypnosis, about it being past lives. I don't want anybody to think that this was my past life. I found out later it's not, thank God, because I don't know if I could handle that with my religious, my underlying religious programming. But I experienced a life through the lens of Jesus. I felt like I was in his body and experiencing life as a human. And I had to sit on this hypnosis for a very long time and really process what I experienced. And I feel like I'm still processing it now, because I feel a little rise in my body right now. So I think there's more shedding that needs to go. I'm in real time observing this event, and the street sweeper's coming by again. Well, hold on. I'm in real time feeling the rise. I'm observing my emotions about this event. So this is an example of what this looks like. You can't really see it, and I don't know, I don't know if you notice the rise in me, but I feel it in myself right now. You notice it?
I can feel that you're the flower has opened, and
Oh,
it's like you've opened your petals.
yeah. Oh, that's so beautiful. I love flower analogies and visualizations. And I had to undo like, oh my God, what the fuck? Like, was I Jesus? Was I Jesus? Like,
Who am
it
I?
sounds so absurd. And then
Yeah.
I was connecting with our other friend Jennifer, and she went into it with like she investigated for me, and apparently it's called an imprint. Like I had an imprint of a memory on in this incarnation to have this memory. It's a part of my healing journey. It's just an imprint, something to like a memory imprint.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know if you could explain imprints better than I can. I don't really know much about imprints.
I imagine it being stepping into the shoes of somebody in order to get a healing.
Hmm. Okay.
Energetic,
Yeah. That's
maybe.
exactly that's exactly what it felt like. So I could like in this hypnosis, I looked down in my hands and I was like, I have a man's hands, but and I was wearing clothing of that time. I couldn't see my face, but I did have a sense that this is who I was in this, like who I was experiencing this experience in, as in. And the most interesting part of it was knowing that Jesus was having a human experience. He was experiencing emotions. He was experiencing his intuition of how he knew what was going to happen to him in his journey.
Mm-hmm.
Like, if you remember the Bible stories of Jesus, he was a magical human.
Mm-hmm.
But people forget that he was human. So the element of experiencing him in his emotions, like happy, like caring, kindness, having so much love for everyone, not just the people around him, feeling so much sadness and grief about what's going to happen to him from the people he loves, like things like that. And it was so profound, and I can't wait for you guys to listen to it. I don't know that I shared a lot out loud because a little part of me was a little like anxious about it, but you guys can listen to it and receive from the frequency if you need religious healing, is what I'm going to call it. Because that's what this hypnosis did for me.
Mm-hmm.
I also want to ask Sarah, like, what was it like for you on your end, listening to what happened?
It was really, I connected and I was getting a big sense of love. Like I remember specifically that there was a massive energy in our hearts, well, in my heart. And it was just interesting to observe. When you told me later on, a few months after that, how impactful it was, because it was a healing of your beliefs. I suppose it made it deeper then, because I didn't realize how deep it was at the time. Yeah.
It was so deep.
Yeah. You were like, I remember you thinking like, whoa, what just happened there? Yeah.
What's happening? This is kind of uncomfortable, but okay, I'm here.
Yeah. I know, but I suppose it was a process. It took a while to process those things. But as an
I
observer,
had
while
to.
I was in a non-judgmental space, obviously, always, and
Yeah.
just feeling into the energy, I suppose, and listening.
I love that you felt love through facilitating that, because I think I think a lot of people get, and this is just how we are as humans, we get too like lost in the details when it comes to our beliefs and religion or religious systems and stuff like that. And no shade on religion if you are if religion is where you find your solace in your spiritual beliefs. Like, I love that for you.
Mm-hmm.
I always find myself coming back to the basics regardless of what system you're into, religion or like spiritual systems like human design and astrology. And there's so much wisdom to be found in the basics and the foundations of things.
Mm-hmm.
And whenever I think of Jesus now, I always remember that Jesus was always about love.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's like a big takeaway for me about Jesus, is that we kind of like forget that that's what his mission was
Yeah.
from the start.
Yeah. And when you
So,
go down the rabbit hole, well, I recommend anyone if this is kind of like sparking interest, I highly recommend people investigate the real story and him and Mary Magdalene, both
I
on,
love, oh my God.
me
I love the
too.
Mary Magdalene story. Oh, I just got chills like in the back of my body. This is what happens when you have a relationship and listen to your body in like moving forward. Like you like notice little pings in there. If you haven't tried this yet, you guys, I feel like you haven't investigated a relationship and experience of living with your body. Um, and when she said Mary Magdalene, I got a little tingle on the like my right shoulder. And I don't know if you've ever read the Magdalene manuscript.
I haven't, I don't think.
It's really, I really recommend. I recommend reading it. Everybody has their own journey with it, and I noticed that where I found it, people were only interested in the magical part of it, where they did the channeling piece.
Mm-hmm.
I read through the whole thing, and the channeling piece where they channeled Mary Magdalene and received messages from her was only like 20 pages of the book.
Mm-hmm.
And the rest was the two people who created the book, their partners.
Mm-hmm.
They both channeled the Magdalene. And then one told his story, and the other, the wife in the story, or the wife in the book, told her story. And there was a lot of healing, like feminine energy healing, from hearing her story, masculine energy, masculine wounds healing from hearing his story. And he had a lot of wisdom to share. Actually, I probably could read this book again and garner more wisdom. Like, when you're always a different person moving forward.
Yeah.
And when you're always like meeting the world with new eyes. So if you revisit old things, you might get more out of it. He had a lot of his background is as a psychologist, and but he's also esoteric.
Mm-hmm.
He dabbles in the woo, and he had a lot of wisdom to share about being human and saying like you cannot just go fully into spirituality without addressing the psychology of what it is to be human, because if you don't address your human nature, like how we've said throughout this episode, being the observer of yourself in your emotions and your reactivity in your nervous system, what you feel like in your body, you'll take that unhealed piece of you into every space you go into next.
Mm-hmm.
And you could spiritually elevate, but you will still have that human wound with you. And he said that the risk in not addressing yourself as a whole piece, a person who has a spiritual side, a person with a psychological side, is that he's seen people become gurus who are narcissistic, for example. Things like that. So it was very valuable to read his story. It was very valuable to read her story, the traumas of being a woman in our modern society. But this was like back in like, I think her story, like, I don't remember when they published this book, but she was like, she's older now. So she lived life through like the 70s, 80s, 90s, and the traumas of surviving as a a single woman with a child and her experiences with men. And I feel like if you're a man listening to this and reading what women go through, you would get a lot of there would be a lot you would get from that. And I don't know that I've met a man who read this book yet, so now that I think about it, I was like, huh. But it was definitely very healing for our feminine wounds.
Yeah.
I definitely recommend it.
And the story as well, you know, that I will definitely read that. But the story of Jesus and Mary Magdalene and how they were equally on the same mission to spread love is really empowering. And now with the feminine energy in the Aquarian, I think she's showing up much more.
Yeah. What book have you read for that story?
I've listened to channelers.
Oh, okay.
They're like channelers who have channeled the messages on YouTube. If you Google, if you go onto YouTube and you Google the real story of Jesus or Mary Magdalene and Jesus, you'll find so much information there.
Okay.
So
Thank you for that tip. If you're not into reading, there's a tip for you. Like, if you find yourself only drawn to learning a certain way, lean into that. Not everybody's meant to read. Not everybody's meant to listen on YouTube. Like, just go the path of least resistance and trust that that's what your body wants to do.
Yeah, totally. And I'd love so much more time to read and sit down and like get lost in a book. And I should make the time because I keep saying it. But you just end up just doing things like cleaning the house or cooking and listening at the same time. So you can listen to audiobooks and it works for me.
Yeah.
What definitely. About you? Are you more of a reader? I think you might be more of a reader.
I got super ADHD over the past few years, and it was really hard to keep my attention on books for an extended period of time. But then this last few months, I'm coming back to books, which I'm really excited because I just love the way books feel in my hand.
Yeah.
And granted, I won't be able to sit there for a very long time to read still. It's like getting longer and longer. But you only need 15 minutes a day to read. It doesn't have to be a whole production. And I think that's where the mind lies to you, what you think it's supposed to look like, instead of how can I just do this in a 15-minute window and then go from there.
Yeah.
Or 5-minute window, make it even smaller. 15 minutes feels long for you. Trust that it feels long for you. Make it smaller. And then your body will get acclimated to what that skill or you're developing or the experience you're engaging with.
Yeah.
So,
and in fact, the shorter the time, the more you take in.
Yeah. Yes, exactly.
Even our attention span diminishes the more we spend reading. So I find that if I read in short periods, I definitely take it in better.
Yeah, definitely. All right. Do you have any closing remarks? Or actually, closing remarks, and where can people find you?
Oh, thank you so much, first of all, for having me on. It's been such an amazing time talking to you as always. You can find me on Instagram under Sarah Egan Empowering You. And I have a website as well, www.sarah-egan.com. And YouTube, Instagram, YouTube, Spotify, you can find me on there.
Lovely.
And that's
what were you going to say?
That's it.
Do you have any offerings that are going on right now?
Well, yeah, I do quantum hypnosis, I'm life coaching, and I'm also a mindfulness and meditation guide for people who are really stressed out.
I love listening to Sarah's voice. Sometimes I see your stuff on Instagram and I was like, ooh, I remember that voice.
I'm also a teacher and I teach business English. So, and I've noticed that a lot of my students are like completely overwhelmed with work. So they're getting a lot of that, you know.
Mm,
It's hard to disconnect from work, and especially as the
yeah,
workloads are getting more and more.
yeah, 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 definitely. All right, Sarah, I'm gonna put all her contacts in the show notes, and this was lovely chatting with you. Thank you for spending time with us, and I'll see you all on the next episode.
Thank you. See you later.
Bye.